This demo will cover a simplified method for making an art gallery space that can be viewed in VR using Blender. For this demo, you should already have a basic understanding of origin points. All right, so here we have our default starting space in Blender. And the first thing we're going to do is put all the pictures we want in our exhibition to be in a folder. So I have these 7 prints, and I've already put them in a folder. So that's all set, and I've gone through and I've named them. So they're 01, 02, 03, etc. If you have really obvious names that you can read quickly for your pictures, like dog, cat, bus, then you're okay to stay with the names. But it can get really confusing because you're going to have to look at these names in little drop-down menus. So you want to keep it obvious. So now that I've got that, I will go to Edit, Preferences, and this is something you only need to do once if you haven't already done it. In Preferences, I'm going to go to the Add-on tab, and I'm going to type PLANE, plane, and here's an add-on which comes with Blender, might not be activated yet, called Import Images as Planes. So if it's checked, you can just X out of here. If it's not, then you want to check that. Okay, so that is activated. So now I can go to File, Import, there it is, Images as Planes. We have our folder structure. I'm going to go to Pictures folder, Exhibit. There they are, my 7 pictures, and import images as planes. And just looks like a bunch of blank planes. If I go to material mode, there, you can see there they are. Now, surprise step, select all, press X for delete. I've deleted the pictures. Why did I do that? We'll find out later. Okay, so I have 7 pictures. I want my VR space to just be a simple 360 VR space that could be rendered in one image, meaning that your viewer is just going to stand in the middle of the room and look at the pictures. So you can imagine if you're in a square space or rectangular room or whatever, you can walk from picture to picture to picture. But if you're just standing in the middle and swiveling around, it's actually best if your room is kind of more of like a radial arrangement. So we're going to have a wall for each picture. So to do that, we're going to make a septagonal room. I'm going to go Shift A to add a new mesh. I'm going to add a cylinder. And here, when you add a new shape, you've got this little option to change the attributes. And I'm going to set the vertices on the cylinder to 7. So now we have a 7-sided shape. Now here you can see this shape has this little yellow point in the middle of it. That is the origin point. I want the origin to be at the bottom of the shape, not floating in the middle. I want it to correspond to the floor. So I can move the origin point or I can move the shape. So when I'm in edit mode, if I move the shape around, you can see that point just stays in the middle. If I go back into object mode here and rotate, it's rotating around that origin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go tab to get into edit. I'm going to look at it on the X or Y axis, just straight from the side. A to select all points, G to move Z for the Z axis. And now I'm going to hold down Control or Command on a Mac, which will engage snap. You can see it's just kind of snapping along to the grid, and I'll just move it right to the horizontal axes. And now you can see it's just sitting up there on the plane, the virtual plane of sorts. And when I hit tab, now you can see that that origin point, that orange spot, is right at the bottom of our structure. So now I want to look at the scale of the structure. So I'm going to hit N on the keyboard, which brings up these menus here. And I can see that my structure is 2 meters tall. I want my room to be about 12 feet tall. So that's approximately 3.5 meters. So I'm going to just set the height of the space to 3.5. And you'll see it grew upwards, not in every direction. And that's because the origin point is down here. So you can see it just grows, but the floor stays on the floor. So now to set the width on the room, we simply hit S for size and Shift Z. And I'm just eyeballing it to what I think looks like a cool shape for a room. I don't want it to be, this would be kind of claustrophobic. It'd be like you're in a tiny little phone booth or very tall phone booth. So I'm just going to put it to about here. And I'm going to go ahead in the collection and rename this to room. When I'm working on this space, I want to be able to look in there. So I'm going to hit Tab now to go into edit mode. I'm going to press the number 3 to go into face selection, select the top of this room. And now I'm just going to hit the letter P on the keyboard. And I'm going to choose to separate selection. Now I'll hit Tab to go back into object mode. So now we can rename this as the top, and we can hide it with a little I. So now our room has no ceiling. We could call it ceiling, but I call it top. You can see there's these little cameras next to the eyes. If you don't have those, you click on this little funnel looking thing and you can activate them. That means that even though I don't see the ceiling will render. All right, so this is already looking pretty good. Now, one thing I need to fix right away is if I go to overlays here, there's this option to show me my face orientation. I'm going to click that. Now, I use this all the time. So if there's something you can use a lot, you can right click and add it to your quick favorites, which means now I can press the Q key and there it is, face orientation. I can turn it on and off quickly. So looking in face orientation, it shows me that the inside of my shape is red and the outside is blue. That would work if this was an object to be viewed from the outside like this. But because this is a room, we want it to be the exact opposite of this. We want the outside of the faces to face in. The consequence of not doing this is all your pictures, when you put them in, will look backwards because the pictures we're trying to will be attempting to face out. So I'll hit Tab to go into edit mode, A to select all. I'll hit space for search and type the word flip. And there we go, flip normals. Also Alt-N, but I'm happy to just search for it. And now our space is flipped. And it doesn't really matter as much for the ceiling, but I'll just quickly do the same thing and flip that over too, just for the sake of consistency. And then I'll hide that again. So now I don't need to look at this anymore, so I'll turn off the face orientation overlay, which again is right in this menu up here. All right, so now we need to alter the geometry of this space a little bit. So I'll select one of these faces here, and I can either press I for inset, just hit escape to cancel it, or I can just press E for extrude and S for size. And you can see they're similar, but different. Which one's better? I don't know. But I've just gone with this one, and I'm just making a box. Now that I've made that, I'm going to use a really handy key command. I'm going to select the next face and press Shift and R for repeat. And I'm just going to do that to all the walls. And now we've got our boxes all the way around. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to resize these now to be the right ratio for my pictures. So, if you had like HD video, you'd want these to be 16 wide by 9 tall. That's not inches, it's just the ratio should be about 16 to 9. My pictures are kind of the same ratio as 8 by 10. So I want them to be 10 somethings tall and 8 somethings wide. So if I press S to resize this face and I resize it on the Z axis, that's no problem. I can change the height. If I want to change it on the X axis, that's not right. Y axis, that's also looks less weird, but you can see if I look to the side, it's sort of tilting and strange. Because I've chosen a 7-sided shape, I don't have any faces that are actually parallel with any of my standard axes. So going back to overlays, I'm going to look at all these different types of information. We had face orientation that we were just looking at. We can emphasize edges, hidden wire, all sorts of fun things, mesh analysis. What we want here is edge length. So we have little numbers that show the lengths of edges. So if I select that face, it shows the proportions. And right away, I see something totally weird going on here. It says that this is 0.76 meters and this is 0.33, but this looks to my eye like a square. So what is going on? So I'm going to hit tab to go back into object mode. And I can see on my scale here that X, Y, and Z are set to 4 point something, 4 point something, and 1 point something. That means that while we have resized this image in object mode, we haven't actually applied that scale. So we need to do that now. We want those to all say 1. And the way we do that is we press Control A, and I'm just going to apply all transforms. And now you can see these numbers here just say 1, 1, 1. That's what we want. And so now I'll hit tab and go back into edit mode. And I know I was just showing you about how to orient the face, but I just realized it doesn't really matter, because what we can do is we can just size the whole thing based on horizontal, and then vertical to z-axis is going to be universal. So I'll show you what I mean by that right now. So this should be a ratio of about 8 by 10. So, and you can see these numbers actually make sense now here, by the way. So I'm going to just hit S to resize the whole plane, and I'm going to hold Shift to get a little more fine tuning. And I'm not paying attention to the numbers on the sides. I'm just paying attention to the width of the top. I just want to get it to 0.8. There we go, 0.8 meters. Now, there are other ways to do this, of course. I'm just trying to demonstrate a way to do this with the fewest tools possible. So just trying to keep it simple. So now this rectangle is 0.8 by 0.7. And just to be safe, let's go and apply this to all of these. So I'll click on these and hit Shift R. So this one I did. Okay. So now, because the z-axis is the same for all of these, we can actually resize these vertically all at the same time. So now I've got all these guys grabbed. So I did the width first. Now I'll do the height. So I'll hit S. And you can see this is doing some crazy stuff. But if I hit Z, so we're just on the Z-axis, we're good. And now I'm just going to hold Shift. And I just want these to be the height of. There we go. And now, just to simplify my view, I'm going to go to overlay and take away the edge length. So I've made all these 0.8 by 1 meter tall. I don't actually care about that size. I just care about the basic shape of the rectangle there. So now that I've done that, I'm just going to size this to what I think will look good in the space. Yeah, that looks good to me. So now I'll just do Shift R again. Whoops. And weird stuff happens if you messed up there. I have to backtrack, sorry. The repeat command is a little weird like that. Okay, so I'll size it to what I like. And just one at a time. You can't get away with clicking them all. Shift R. And the reason we're doing these one at a time, just to remind you, is if we size these together, it's going to move them. All right. That looks good. I think that I want these to be just a little bit higher up in the space. So I've selected them all. I've hit grab, Z for the Z axis, and I'm just going to move them up a little bit in the space. There we go. Now, I don't want my pictures to just be flat on the wall. I want them to come out a little bit. Now, there's more advanced things we can do to model frames around them and all sorts of cool stuff, but we're not going to do that right now. So I've selected all my faces, and if I hit E for extrude, we get this madness. We don't like any of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit Option E, and we're going to choose Extrude Individual Faces. Now, if I go out, they go out. If I go in, they go in. And I just want to have my pictures stick out from the wall just to give the whole space a little bit more depth, because we are going to render this in 3D. Okay. That looks good. So I'm also going to go ahead and separate the floor in this scene. So I'll select the bottom, hit P, separate selection. Then in my collection, I'll rename this to bottom. I could call it floor, but I already called the ceiling top. So now the next thing we need to do is actually put our pictures in the space. So to do that, we're going to go to material view. We don't want to be in render view because we don't have any lights in the scene. So material view, here we are. And we're going to set just a basic material for this whole shape. We could get fancy with it, but I'm just going to go new material. It's sort of a white wall. It's not metallic. It's not particularly matte or shiny. I'm just going with the defaults. It's just a default material. I even name it boring wall. Okay, so now we're going to assign new materials. So turning an image into a material can be a little tedious. I have a longer form tutorial that goes through this the long way. But because we imported these as planes, we've got them all as materials, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But we can't just select them because that's going to change the material for the whole object, which looks awesome, but it's not what we're going for. So I'll set that back to boring wall. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select my first picture. I'm going to hit plus for new material. I'm going to hit assign. So that new material is assigned. And then I'm going to choose 1. And it doesn't look quite right, but I'm not going to worry about that yet. I'm just going to keep going around and doing this. So now the next one, new material, assign, image 2. You can see why it was helpful to keep the name simple. Okay, so let's try the easy way to get all our pictures to look right, and then we'll see if we have to do anything fancy. So the easy way is I press A to select all. I'm still in edit mode. I press U, which is for UV mapping, which is essentially a description of how a picture is wrapped around an object. And we're just going to click Smart UV Project and hit OK. And that didn't work, but we're still going to try to make it easy. So I'll hit U. Now I'm just going to select one image at a time. U, Smart UV Project. OK. OK, so this is almost right, but the images are kind of like, you can see they're it's a little sloppy how they're arranged in here. So to fix this, we're going to go into the UV editing tab. So there along the top, UV editing. So you can see if I hit A, ignoring the picture you see in the background, this is kind of just, close that down. This is just sort of the overall geometry of how our scene has been unfolded. It's like if you were going to cut this out and put it all together. So we can do this essentially one UV at a time. So here we look at this picture and we can see that the box is close, but it's not right. Sometimes the auto thing just gets it right, but alas, it didn't. So to adjust this, I'm going to select the face here. Then here I'll select A. So I'm just grabbing this whole rectangle and I'll move it and just size it to actually fit my picture. And I can change this window here to also material mode. I can see that yeah, I guess the Smart UV Project didn't work well because I can see that my picture is actually upside down. So I'll hit R here and I'll just type 180 to flip it over. And then that looks good. So this is tedious, but you just kind of have to do it. So we'll go to the next one. A here. Now, when you select, you've got to hover your mouse in the right place. If I hover here and press A, that's bad news. So these are the same, you're working in 2D, but it's essentially the same commands. But if you want to change something on an axis, it's S and Y for height and X for width, because it's 2D, not 3D, so it doesn't have a Z axis. Made it all the way around. Great. So now I'll go back to layout mode. We've done our UV editing, which can be a little insane at times. And now we can just kind of tweak our space a little bit. I think that just adding a few architectural details can improve the look of the space. So I'm going to edit the floor now. I'm going to press I for inset. It's the same as extruding and doing resize. Now I'm going to create that little inset. Actually, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that a little less. So there. And now I want to select all these new faces. So I'm actually going to press Control I. So I'm just selected the edges. Now I'm going to press E for extrude and just bring that up. And now we have like a little baseboard just to give the room a little bit more of a sense of space to it. Now we also might want to do something interesting with the floor, with the materials here. So, you know, I can make a new material. I can make the floor gray, for instance. Maybe make the floor shiny. We can't see that the floor is shiny. I'm going to go into my render settings for a second here. You don't have to do this. And turn on screen space reflections. And now you can see, you can kind of see like sort of like a shiny gray floor that has a bit of a mirror quality to it. Another thing you can do if you want to just like play with materials a little bit, I'm going to set the floor actually to boring wall. And then I'm going to go to preferences. And I'm going to search material. And there's this add-on here called Material Library. So I already have it checked. So now in the Material tab, well, I'm going to go into tab mode. I'm going to select the floor, not the little baseboards that I made. And I'm going to scroll all the way down here, and there it is, Material Library VX. That's what you just enabled. And this thing comes with some sample materials. Sometimes this one stalls a little bit. They're not the best quality materials, but there are some cool materials in here. So I'll go with polished walnut and hit apply to selected. And now my floor is made of wood, but let's do wood boards instead. Apply to selected. Now we've got some wood boards on the floor. Just gives our room a little bit more of a vibe to it. You can see that they kind of have a sheen on them. This wood is a procedural texture, which means it's like, I can show you for a second. It's like generated through all these like wave patterns and grids and curves and cool stuff that we can learn about later. You can also use a photo-based wood floor texture, which is a whole different deal. Okay, so we've almost completed the space. The thing we're missing, we can see in render mode, this looks terrible because we don't have any light in our space. So there's a few ways we can set up our light. We can add a light, we can add a point light. G, grab Z, lift that up. So we could just have like one light in the room. Right now it defaults at 10 watts. There's a little tab with a light bulb here. I'm going to set it to 2000 watts. Now we have a big bright light in the room. It's actually too bright. Also reflecting on the floor. Cut that in half. So that looks pretty good. We can go with that. You could also, if you want the reflections to look differently, we could take this light and move it to the side in the room. So we're looking straight to the bottom. So we can move it kind of close to one of the pictures. We can turn the power down on it, turn it down to 400. I can set this here, and we can make a radial array, but it's actually pretty easy to eyeball it. So I can just, because I'm looking straight down, I can just put 7 lights all around the room. And that has kind of a cool effect. We have a lot of light and everything's glowing in here. Maybe too many, or at least they're too bright. One. Another thing we can do that will look interesting is we can create an emissive material. So I'm actually going to take the ceiling here and zoom in. And if we render this, it'll even be darker than this. And I click on the ceiling. create a new material for it. And I'm going to make that material, instead of, we could set emission down here, or let's just do that. We'll set this to have an emission, crank that all the way up so that the ceiling is kind of glowing white. And then here with emission strength, we can crank that way up. And this doesn't seem to be having an effect because we're using Eevee, which is the less sophisticated rendering engine. So we can switch this to cycles. And now you can see that all this light is just glowing straight from the ceiling. And it's a complex space with light bouncing all around. So the render on it is kind of slow. I can switch to GPU rendering to speed that up a little bit. So lots of lighting choices. We're just going to go with that one. And now we're going to actually render the scene out. Looks like I have an extra light in here. I'll delete that. So to render this scene, I'm actually going to switch to material view. I'm going to hide the top again so I can just look right in here. And we need to add a camera to our scene. So I'll hit Shift A to add a camera. Hit G and Z to lift it up a little bit. It's in the middle of the room. Right now it has this kind of weird default rotation. So I'm just going to turn that off. So here where we have the rotation, I'm just going to set them all to 0. If you don't see this menu here, you can just hit the N key. So now they're all at 0, and then maybe I'll set the X to 90. So the camera's just looking forward. And in wireframe view, I'm just going to change the height of it. So it's kind of just start choosing how tall the person is. Now it doesn't actually matter. I always have the camera pointing forward. I don't know if that even matters. It doesn't really matter which way the camera's pointing because this is going to be an equirectangular image. So to do that, you have to be using cycles. And now we go to our camera settings and we change the perspective to panoramic. And if we go to render mode here and we go to camera view, we can see that we kind of have this weird sort of circular fisheye view. And the field of view should be set to 360 degrees. So now we have a more dramatic fisheye. And rather than panoramic, we want this to be set, rather than fisheye, we want this to be set to equirectangular. And you may be wondering, why does the room look so dark? That is because we've hidden the ceiling, which is also our light. So there, we turn on the lights, there we go. Because the ceiling is emissive, so that is our light. So we're almost done. Our render settings are good. We go to output, and we need this for it to be a VR image. It needs to be twice as wide as it is long. So I'm going to make it 4,000 wide, 2,000 high. We're just going to render an image right now. So let's render a short video. So we're going to make it a 1-frame video. So frame 1 to 1. We're actually going to set, because this doesn't move, if this had any animation, we wouldn't do it this way. We're going to set a custom frame rate to 1 frame a second. This is a 1-frame video, and we want this to last for a minute. So we're going to set the base down here to 60. Now, this is a dirty trick to make an image that plays for a minute in YouTube. If you're just making an image, you don't need to do any of this madness. And if you're making actual video, this is also madness here. Okay, so now for output, we choose a location. Let's just send it to videos, and I'll call it gallery space demo. Set. Now we'll set the file format here to FFmpeg. We'll set the encoding to MPEG-4. And now there's a couple important things that we need to add here. So we need to turn on stereoscopy because we want this to be 3D. And then here, we leave it in stereo 3D. And view format, we don't want it to be individual. We want that to also be stereo 3D. Anaglyph means that this is for 3D glasses. We don't want that. We want VR top bottom. And now that that's all set, we've got our render engine, we've got all these complicated output settings. We can go click on render, render animation. And here you'll see as this renders, it looks like it's rendering in red. That's because it's just showing you that it's rendering both channels. So if you turn off this 3D glasses button, you can see there it goes. And this is a complex scene. It's a room. It's got light bouncing around every angle. So it will take a few minutes to render. Once you've finished exporting your video, when you preview it, you'll see that it's kind of strange looking. We have this square frame with these elongated, stretched out videos. And if you upload this directly to YouTube, that's exactly what you'll see. So the last thing we need to do before we can upload a video we've exported is to use the Spacial Media Injector. And instead of just saying my video is 360 spherical, this time you'll want to check off top and bottom layout. So simply navigate to your file, check this box, 3D top bottom layer. So again, the reason it looks square is because the left and right channel are represented as separate videos. And now that up, so then you just click inject media, and save that file. And now your new file with the injected metadata is ready to be uploaded on YouTube and viewed in the VR headset.